Well, close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, and unfortunately, basketball does not fit into that category. And for back-to-back games, Indiana has played it close. They've played 39 and a half minutes of excellent basketball, and unfortunately, the last 30 seconds have hurt them in both games. Welcome back to the House of Hoosier podcast, presented by the Field of 68 Podcast Network. I'm Ian Plaskoff. He's Austin Platt. And Austin, I'm going to say again, I was very happy with the way that Indiana played yesterday. And we're recording this the day after the game against Purdue. And just the same problem. It just felt like the Maryland game all over again. But there were some promising signs, but also some concerns as well.
Yeah, this one stings. There's no doubt about it. I just that may have been just with the circumstances, and nobody gave IU a shot to win a game to win this game. That might just be the most gut wrenching loss, maybe of the Mike Woodson era, man. It's up there. The Maryland game is right in all of our heads too, but just the effort was there. A switch has been flipped from the Maryland game to this game. And it proves that Indiana, like talent-wise, they're right there, and they're not maybe as far behind as we think. And I think just as Josh said, did a really good job of previewing the game, like just the expectations and the way Hoosier fans, where they put this team at the beginning of the year, and they just kind of not essentially all given up, but we feel like we're so much further away than we really are. That being said, you have to win these kind of games, and you have to close the games out. You got to win one of these two. You did not expect to go in and win at Mackey Arena, 20 turnovers. Like, it was not the cleanest brand of basketball by any means, but the opponent shot 15% from beyond the arc. Like, when your opponent's having an off night, I don't care who it is, I don't care where the game is, you got to find a way to win. And considering the way IU loses usually because teams just run them off the floor with three-pointers, that wasn't the case on Friday night. And you got to find a way to close one of these games out. Just one of the two wins against Maryland or Purdue, you get one, and this entire narrative is changed, and you're right really in this, the whole bubble and what is Indiana now 5-6 in the Big Ten? Instead, you're 6-5. Like, you're on the right side of the top half, and you can make a run even for a double bye. Like, I don't think that team who has the top four teams, that let's say that fourth seed in the Big Ten tournament, they're only going to win like I think 12, 13 games maybe in the Big Ten. Like, I don't know the standings off the top of my head, but they're not going to like Indiana wasn't completely out of it for a top four. Now it's like, ooh, you look at this stretch. And now you're kind of worried, like, all right, like truly, when is the next win going to come if you can't close these games out?
And we'll get into the late game execution in this one, but that was only what 30 seconds out of 40 minutes. I'm not going to do the math, but that's a small fraction of what this game was. For the heavy majority of this basketball game, that everything other than the turnovers, it felt like one of the better, probably the best Indiana's played all season, honestly. Um, and I put this out after the game yesterday because like this is obviously going to get overshadowed by all the frustration and everything, but Indiana's seniors deserve all the credit in the world for this game. I mean, Ballo and Galloway and Leal and Goody, and I mean, Mbako's not a senior, but throw him in there as well. Without them playing at the level that they played at, this would have been ugly. I mean, in the first half, Mbako carried Indiana, kept them afloat. Same with Goody. The second half was all about Trey Galloway. Now, I'm gonna be honest here. I have not really been the biggest Trey Galloway supporter out there. I've been quite frustrated with his play actually in recent games and throughout the season. But Trey Galloway, I'm going to give him all the credit in the world for yesterday because he played probably, other than the Kansas game last year, probably his best game in the Cream and Crimson. And Oumar Ballo was huge inside. Anthony Leal just made winning play after winning play. And again, we said this after the Maryland game, but it just sucks that everything has to get ruined by late game execution once again, because this felt like it could have been a turning point in Indiana's season. Just, I mean, the motor was there, the effort was there, the fight was there, everything was there. And then to throw the game away at the end just hurts. But all the credit in the world to Indiana's seniors and leaders and also Mbako, the sophomore. Just they were key and they really were all that Indiana had in this game.
I said this, I don't know when this was, but I've said this kind of at certain points this year. I think I said during the Maryland game or something like Trey Galloway had no business coming back to IU. Like he could have just walked off, like had a great career at IU. He could have said, all right, I can be done. I can go somewhere else if I want. I can, hang it up. And I don't think he's ready for the next level quite yet. But this was a game where I was like, all right, for all the crap that he has gotten and that missed free throw, that missed front end of the 1-and-1, damn near looms large now. But he essentially made up for it. 13 second half points off the pick and roll with Ballo. Like it almost felt like it looked like he was always trying to pass it. Like some of his floaters, like, is that an alley-oop? And oh my God, it's in the bottom of the net. Like, wow, what a big bucket. Always came up with the big shot. The turnovers were the issue. 6 turnovers, but 5 assists, which he's had 5 assists a game this year off the bench. Like that's just a great mark, and he's worked really well off the PNR really all year long, and really throughout his time at IU, and just being the primary ball handler in a game like this. After the week off and he had a didn't have a great game against Maryland, hasn't really had a great season by any means, and not what Indiana thought. And now he's essentially been demoted to the bench for Anthony Leal, a guy who barely scores, which I think kind of puts things into perspective. But yeah, you're right. I thought watching the second half with the 13 second half points, it felt like it was 1A and 1B with Kansas, and both those games just like complete gut-wrenching losses that kind of, unfortunately, that Kansas loss I think really set that team back last year, put them, behind the 8 ball going into Big Ten play, and it was kind of a disaster as we know for IU last year in conference play. And I'm afraid that a loss like this, the team just could spiral completely in the wrong direction. Um, but give credit to Trey Galloway. He deserves it. And, he's been booed by the fans as a captain, someone who last year, we didn't know if he was coming back. And senior day, obviously said, I'm not done. I'm not ready for it to be over yet. And, got a huge ovation just like Leal did. And both those guys played their asses off. Ballo with 14 points. And Baco played really well. Goody was incredible in that first half. And you just kind of knew, like, all right, based on the first half, based on them crashing the boards, like, I was always like going into that game, and it was probably just recording the podcast Thursday night was like, all right, like I can be confident now. Like no one gave IU shot to win this game. 12.5 point underdogs going in, I think was the final line from Vegas. No one gave Indiana a fighting chance. And the seniors stepped up in a game like this. And Josh said that, it's the guys who are from Indiana that it means most to. Leal, Galloway, and Goody. Those guys combined for 34 points, and they all played at least 26 minutes. Galloway 26 off the bench, Leo 35, and he fouled out, and Goody played 34. Like you can't ask for any more.
I mean, obviously there were a lot of things that went well, and just focusing on the offensive side of things, Mbako, I mean, great game from probably his best game of the year. 10 for 17 from the field, 3 of 8 from 3, 25 points. Did also get 5 rebounds and stayed out of foul trouble. So he was in there with the seniors as well. Like it was the guys that have played in this game before or know what this game's about, like you said, that really shine in this one. Like, I mean, we'll get into Myles Rice, but Myles Rice did not meet the moment. Anthony Leal was, I mean, you could tell that he wanted this game more than anything. Same with Trey Galloway. One thing about Trey Galloway, I don't know if we're ever going to get the answer to this. I mean, I won't be able to ask him this personally, obviously, but I want to know about his hair. Like, if he cut his hair, was that supposed to be like a fresh start? Like, is that a reset moment? Like, you see that a lot with guys of where they change something about their appearance and all of a sudden they're like brand new and it's kind of like a refreshing kind of thing. So when I saw Trey Galloway with his haircut for the first time, like, who is that on this team? And I was, oh, that's Trey. And then all of a sudden he is 15 points, 7 of 10, 5 assists, and he's carrying Indiana in the second half. So that's one thing I would love to know. I don't know how or if we're ever going to get that answer. Um, yeah, we've talked about the things that went well, and we'll continue to do so throughout this one. But there were a lot of other concerning pieces to this game, and one in particular that I want to focus on is Malik Reneau. And Malik Renew, I mean, we've known he's been struggling with foul trouble since he got to Bloomington. It's been a problem. And in Mackey Arena in this one, he played 8 minutes. He was in foul trouble the whole way, fouled out in 8 minutes, had three turnovers. He was a minus 12, and scored 3 points on one field goal and one free throw. So, I mean, obviously, he's still coming off the injury. He hasn't seen game action too much since that injury, but that was the foul trouble made it difficult for everybody else as well.
This is why I don't think he should be starting. Like, and everyone knows this. And Purdue, obviously, they're so guard heavy, and Kaufman Ren's, such an interesting forward because he doesn't, he's not your traditional like, I don't want to say post up big, but kind of like not the ordinary kind of big you think of, and obviously so much different than Zach Edey. But why does Malik Renew need to start in this game? Like, with the guard play and Smith and Lawyer going to get theirs, and Kaufman ran at 23, and Smith and Lawyer combined for 39 points. I mean, the three of them combined for 14 and 5. So they scored what, 70, no, 62 of Purdue's 81 points. And you know that's going to happen. But why does Renew need to start in a game like this? Like, he can be valuable off the bench. When Ballo needs to come out, and he played 35 minutes, Ballo did, and he fouled out at the very end. But it can work so much better when Renew is not starting, and obviously it's better when you have Goody or really Goody playing at the four. Like, it's fine. I know Goody's not fantastic defensively, but he only had one foul. Um, and M'Baku at times dealt with foul trouble this year. He had three, and defensively was kind of in and out in a game like that. But the 5 rebounds obviously goes a long way. But just something has to change. Like with Renew, you got to get him out of the lineup, or he's a liability defensively, and that's where we say this all along. He's a junior now. You are what you are, and on the defensive end, Renew is a disaster. And Mike Woodson is Renew's one of Renew's biggest fans. Like, there's no doubt about it. Like, he is, I think, one of the hardest guys on Renew because he knows that Malik has the potential to be a really special player. But defensively, Mike Woodson preaches defense every damn day, and Malik Renew has never met the standard of being a guy who can stay on the floor because of his defense. And 5 fouls in 8 minutes, man. That's pathetic. And you're not going to win many games with, just defensive liabilities on the floor at the end of games and in big situations. And unfortunately, Renew was one of them and only had 3 points, only took three shots, got to the free throw line once, missed an open three, which I'm fine with him taking. Um, but man, just why is he on the floor?
This is what I didn't like, and this was echoed by many people I saw on Twitter after the game, is you look at the first half and Luke Goody, I mean, after Malik Renew exited in the first half after what 4 minutes and a couple of fouls, Luke Goody comes in and scores 13 points on 4 of 6 shooting, 3 of 5 from three, 2 of 2 at the free throw line. Only picked up, he didn't foul in the first half actually, and he led all scorers in 16 first half minutes. And then you go to the second half, and Indiana opens the second half with Malik Renew instead of Luke Goody. And it just backfired. Like the first half, I thought when Purdue went on that run at the beginning of the first half, it was going to be ugly for the rest of the half. And that was not the case, fortunately. But I did not like that move at all. I mean, you bring in a cold Renew, and then later in the half, you have to bring in a cold Goody. Um, and I just didn't like the timing of everything. I think Goody should have started the second half. I think he deserved to start the second half. He was a real difference maker in the first, and in the second half he was 0 for 3 from the field in 18 minutes. He did play some half decent defense there, but if you're bringing him in cold after a red hot first half, you can't really expect him to find that rhythm again after a little bit. So I did not like that decision.
Mike Woodson is always just throwing the same starting five out for the second half, and sometimes it just hasn't worked. And I go back to the game where IU beat Purdue the first year with the Rob shot. Like, Trace Jackson Davis was in foul trouble that entire game, and they started him in the second half when he already had 2 fouls and was on the floor for like 5 or 6 minutes. And it's just the same thing. Like they're gonna attack the same guy, and um, all of Purdue's points were essentially from two, and points in the paint. They have 36 of them, and only four less than IU, and had a bunch of second chance points and a lot of points off turnovers, which is obviously the difference in this game. Um, but you have to understand that Purdue took 6 threes in the first half, and I believe they only made one. They were 1 of 6 from three in the first half, and give them credit. Like some shots where it's like those are the ones that like Hood Schifino made a few years ago in the win at Mackey. Like that's how good he played. That's how well he played. But you just have to understand like the situation. Like you need guys who can shoot the three and and play on the other end. Like you need a 3 and D. Like and Luke Goody can provide you that, and Mbako can provide you that. Renew cannot can provide you that, and that's the difference. And just again, failure to adjust to start the second half has been the issue. Feels like all season long. Like that was the issue against Northwestern. You could not figure out how to switch off of screens, and you lost that game. And it was a little different in the Maryland game because Queen was so quiet. They went a lot more to they went more to the three ball. Maryland did it in that second half, and all those guys, their guards were diabolical. Didn't miss a shot. It felt like, but you have to adjust. And Mike Woodson has been slow to adjust this entire time, and again, end of game situations, man, will kill you, and that's what's gonna unfortunately plague this team, I think, for the rest of the season.
When we were previewing this game with Josh, he talked about his most important segments. He said the first four, the last four, and the middle eight. And Indiana played quite well in the first four, and the middle eight, they did not, and the last four, they did not. And ultimately, those segments are what lost Indiana this game, paired with the other problems of missing free throws and turnovers, which has been a consistent problem, not only for the Mike Woodson era, but just for Indiana basketball in the past, I don't know, 15 plus years. Um, so I do want to dive into that because obviously it's a struggle in the late game scenarios, but a game isn't lost on one play. And Mike Woodson said that. I'll give him credit for it because he took ownership of the entire game's performance, not just the end. And Indiana turned the ball over 20 times in this game. Purdue scored 26 points off those turnovers. And then also, Indiana missed 7 free throws. Like, you look at Purdue, they shot 2 of 13 from three. They turned the ball over 10 times. They got out rebounded by 6 by Indiana. And on the offensive glass, Indiana out rebounded them by 2. Like everything added up to what should be a pretty comfortable Indiana victory. But it was those self-inflicted wounds of turnovers, points off turnovers, and free throws that we've seen for years and years and years that just either make things difficult or ultimately cause Indiana to lose games, and that's what happened.
Yeah, I actually like just looked at the free throws now, like now that you said that, and I knew it wasn't great. But you just got to make your free throws, and when you have only 16 of them, you have to make at least 12 or 13. When the opponent's going to the line, 12 more times than you. I don't think the officiating was bad. Everyone will talk about, free throw discrepancy, but I don't think that was an issue just because Purdue's a team that likes to get downhill a lot more than IU, and Galloway isn't someone that usually gets all the way to the rack. He usually goes for that floater from about, 8 or 10 feet, depending. But it's just it is self-inflicted wounds, and in games like this, as I said earlier, when the opponent shoots 2 of 13 from beyond the arc, takes only 13 threes. I assume that's a season low for Purdue. 13 is a really low number this day and age in college basketball, especially with the way Purdue is with their kind of guard heavy play. But you got to win these games. When the opponent's having such a poor 3-point shooting night, and Purdue shot 53% from the field. Like they were incredible from inside, and they got to the line. They did exactly what they wanted against IU, and they're like, all right, we'll lose that 3-point battle. Indiana 3 of 6 in the second half from beyond the arc. Probably didn't take enough threes. The Hoosiers can say that. But Purdue played it well, and we're like, all right, we'll play this. We'll take a bunch of twos and have higher percentages of either making them or going to the line and making them that way. And they were 75%, 21 of 28, which is a really good mark. And they played it right. They rolled the dice, and what do you know? They came up on top.
This I'm going to go back to this again because we broke this down. I think it was after Northwestern, where if Indiana gives up fewer than 70, I think it was, they should have a pretty good chance to win. That's what Mike Woodson said for years and years and years. And this was another one where they had the potential to hold them under 70, Purdue did, and Indiana could have comfortably won this game. Um, but again, the turnovers and the points off turnovers, like let's see what 26 of Purdue's 81 points came off of Indiana turnovers. So if you do the math, that's like what, over a quarter, which is not ideal at all because that you're just giving them a quarter of their points basically. And that's not to say Purdue didn't earn those points on the offensive end, but it's they were given the opportunity. Like Indiana shot 57% from the field, 37% from three on seven makes. And then of course the free throws 9 of 16, which isn't great. They out-rebounded Purdue 32 to 26. They out-rebounded them on the offensive glass 12 to 10. On the assist numbers, let's see, it was uh
14-9.
14 to 9. So like Indiana outplayed Purdue in every basic offensive category, except free throws and turnovers and points off turnovers. And like it's we keep going back to it, but it sucks. Like you play a terrific game. This was the best game that Indiana has played all year for again 39 and a half minutes. And that final 30 seconds and there were pieces of that 39 and a half minutes also that were struggles, but man, it the like this is a game that you had to have to get yourself in good position for tournament play, to get the fan base back in it, and just to beat Purdue. Like this is what people go to Indiana for, is to beat Purdue on the basketball side of things. Like, and now you got to go to the Kohl Center, where you haven't won in 27 years, and then you play at Michigan State versus Michigan. All these tough opponents. We'll get into it. But this could have been a real momentum turner. And then you look at the end of the game, and I know it was heat of the moment, but you just see in that huddle, like Ballo screaming at Myles Rice. He walks out of the handshake line. Guys are frustrated. Guys are kind of losing their composure. And it just, I really hope that that doesn't rip this team apart for the rest of the schedule because there were points in that huddle at the end of the game that did not look very promising.
I'm confident that the players have not, the coaching staff has not lost the players or vice versa, whatever way you want to put it. And I still think the players are on board with the staff and they haven't given up certainly. And the effort in the last two games would say that. But it's just, it's always been this way. This, when the ball is not in play or, this off the court stuff or whatever happens in the huddle, this has always been the conversation, man. Like this is why people don't take Indiana seriously and as a program, really. And it's because you get Woodson trying to dodge the handshake line. You got Rosemont throwing off his jacket after the Maryland game. You got Ballo yelling at a teammate who sure took a terrible shot, but then he's not going in the handshake line. You get guys getting suspended for whatever reason. Ballo's not playing the Winthrop game because who knows why. Like you get all these like silly technical fouls and losing your composure against Illinois, and you guys just getting ejected. And the ejections Indiana is towards the top in the last 5 or 6 years in the Big Ten, and I think in the country as well, just because of silly stuff and not being disciplined. And that's what I think frustrates me the most. Lose the game, fine. You lose at number 10 Purdue game. No one gave you a shot. Yeah, it sucks. It stings. For how hard you played, this game really, really stings. But no one can't really seem like they cared last year when you got, your ass kicked twice against Purdue by 20 and 21 respectively. Like you much rather be a good loser than a good winner. No one wants to play with bad losers. And this goes back to, whatever sport you played growing up. No one wants to, have to worry about, beating a guy, beating a kid, beating a team, and then, all of them are spoiled brats at the very end. This is what it looks like Indiana is. Like it starts with the coaches. go in and shake the hands at the very end. It can be quick. You don't have to say much. Takes, a minute and a half to shake hands, and then you're back in the locker room. You can do whatever the hell you want. It's the same with Ballo. You can be frustrated in the heat of the moment, but the game's not over. Like, I know you fouled, and the way Purdue was making free throws, you had a feeling that they'd iced the game, but you can't be yelling at your guy in the huddle. You can't be showing that, just lack of confidence. I've always said this, no matter what it is, no matter what the sport is, do it, in the dugout, do it in the locker room, do it wherever. Don't, or just do it like where the cameras are not. Like, figure that out, behind closed doors and get it done that way. No matter what needs to happen, if you need to punch a whiteboard like Purdue did after losing to Fairleigh Dickinson, then do it. Then that's fine. When the cameras are not on you and there's no video of it, that picture is still pretty funny though. But don't do it, in the heat of the moment. And Leo tried his damn best to calm down Ballo, but that's tough to do. Like Ballo has to, foul out at the very end when he obviously is such an important player to have on the floor. But this is why I think people don't take Indiana seriously, is because stuff like this and the off the court stuff that has plagued IU for the last few years. And yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
Let's get into the late game mishaps, scenarios, whatever you want to call it. I mean, first of all, I'm going to continue to give credit to Trey Galloway. We'll start when it was 75-74 Purdue. And Trey Galloway comes down the floor, and Jason Benetti and Robbie Hummel did a great job of describing this play. It felt like time just stopped when Trey Galloway got in the paint. Like nobody kind of reacted. It was just kind of a weird pause. And Galloway goes up with his signature floater and puts it in to give Indiana the lead. And that was with what, 30.5 seconds left. You go down the other end, and I felt like Indiana actually played a pretty decent defense on that play. It was just a better offensive play by Trey Kaufman-Renn. I mean, a little hook shot from 12 feet is a lot more difficult than allowing a layup or a wide open three. So I'm again, Trey Kaufman-Renn, great player, great shot. He was a tough cover all day. And yeah, so that happens with 10 seconds left. And then this is where it's difficult because there are a lot of things, a lot of different directions you can go with this one, at least in terms of breaking this down. So Myles Rice is back in the game because Anthony Leo fouls out. Rice comes down the floor, and we know Myles Rice likes to play fast and often too fast for his own good. And he goes down, and I watched this back actually because it was brought up on Twitter. And I know Mike Woodson in media said that he couldn't get Miles' attention to call the timeout there with 10 seconds left. But you look back at the tape, and Mike Woodson is on the other side of the court, so you can't expect to hear him. But he's waving his arms forward, like he's going like go 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 go. I don't really see how that's trying to get like even if you're not going to be able to hear him from the other side of the court in Mackey. It's the loudest place in the country at that place at that time. If your hand signals are to go like this when you know your guy's not going to be able to hear you, do you really think he's going to be able to pick up on that and call a timeout? Or were you just lying and saying that you were trying to get him to call timeout to try and defend yourself? I don't know. We won't get the answer to that. But Rice goes down, shoots this contested jump shot off balance. Did he get fouled? Did he not? Sure looked like he did, but they didn't call it. Um, and then Ballo fouls out afterwards. Purdue goes down, makes the free throws, and then the Hail Mary from Galloway is like 15 feet off the mark. So going back to the Rice play, obviously we don't know what the timeout situation was because Woodson said one thing and looked like he did another. Um, this was, I mean, the exact same as the Maryland game, like to a T. Like Rice has the ball in the Maryland game. He called timeout, and Rice went down and made a layup, but it didn't count. Um, and then broken inbounds play lost the game. This time you let him play, and it goes awry, and Indiana loses at Mackey Arena. But both plays end with debate and frustration and guys yelling at their teammate. So I don't know. That's my breakdown of it. I would have liked a timeout there. I would have liked to get the ball in Galloway's hands. Um, because yeah, that's just me. I mean, Matt Painter said after the game, like he thought the ball was going to be in Galloway's hands there, and he was thankful that it wasn't. And he kept saying a lot of things that were like, I don't know how we won this game. The other team deserved to win, whatever. But all things considered, what happened, I can't get behind that. I would have liked a timeout.
Matt Painter knows what he's doing, man. Like
Yeah.
he has his ways. Like he knows this, and I think last year he kind of was trying to hype up IU after they smoked him at Assembly Hall, which was kind of felt like that same loss. Then there was this year at Illinois, like a game you can win. Obviously, you're not favored, but you just did not expect it to get out of hand like that. And he was damn lucky. Purdue was damn lucky that they won this game, and they made the right plays down the stretch. And Kaufman hits a really tough hook shot. I had nothing wrong with that. Like nothing wrong with that defensive play. And that shot goes up with 11 seconds left. You're like, all right, like you feel pretty good about this, no matter what happens. Um, there's two sides to the coin, and there kind of always is. And I feel like this is kind of a newer thing in college basketball where it's like, feels like always in that situation, if you're IU, you give up a basket, you immediately call it, or once you get it past the half court line, you immediately call a timeout. That's kind of not the way this game has been. I think it's just because of the more kind of back and forth style, like up and down the court. And there's always the you just go for it and kind of feel the flow of the game. And if you feel confident that your guards can go get downhill and make a play and get to the basket, and you crash the boards and give yourself a shot, then you're fine with that. But there's always two sides of the coin here, and with two timeouts, I think I don't mind not taking one if it's Trey Galloway, if he has the ball in his hands, and you just have to go with the hot shooter in that situation, and you cannot allow Myles Rice. And I brought a prop with me. I have a donut in my hand.
Oh boy.
The donut represents the number of points Myles Rice had during this game. Zero. And even though he was the guy to take that last shot against Maryland, the play was ran for him, and he threw up a bad shot or, the whatever, the whole mess. I can blame the coaching staff with that just because the whole substitutions against Maryland. I don't mind running this play completely. I don't mind playing it out with two timeouts. I'd like to take one. But Myles Rice has to know if he has this number of points, he cannot be the guy to take the last shot. And for someone who's just a sophomore and had a damn good year last year, and the expectations were again set high on him like everybody else, he has to know if he is having a down night and he has this many points, you can't be the guy to take the shot. You gotta bite your tongue and realize I cannot be the guy to take the shot. And everyone wants to go for Woodson's head. That's the way this fan base is now. I agree. Woodson is not the answer if you want to get a team like this to meet expectations. But I'm fine letting that play run out. I'm fine with what Woodson did. And I'm fine letting him, signal to push it forward. Woodson can call a timeout too during the live play. Like it's a live ball timeout. Like you don't need the players to call it. Like so, pick one. And I watched the same thing. I watched that clip back and it's like, all right, what is Woodson doing? Because he usually points to whoever it is, and most coaches do this. You say point, you go right in front of me, right near the coaching box, quote unquote, and you call a timeout. He didn't do that. So, like, get it right. You're throwing players under the bus for the Maryland game when it was your fault that you ran a crummy play and you subbed at the last second, whatever, and completely made a fool out of yourself. Just take accountability. Like, just say, all right, I wanted him to go. I didn't want him to take a shot like that foul block, whatever. That shouldn't be the point. We should not be talking about whether he was fouled or not in a situation like this. And it's the same against Maryland. But Myles Rice just has to be smarter than that, and he cannot take such a dumb shot. And even so, like the play after that, where you throw the ball down the court with 3 seconds left to, as you mentioned, Malik Renew. Why is he the guy? You're down by 3 points with 3 seconds left. It was something like that. And Galloway's throwing a football pass. Damn it, like he looks like Curtis Rourke trying to find Elijah Surratt in the end zone. Just again, why are these the plays you're running? And you had chances and you called the timeout one play too late and this, that, the other thing. Just embarrassing, man. Just pathetic. And just take accountability. That's all we ask for. That's all we've been asking for. And He's happy to bench his players for being out the bar the night before or being out too late in Evanston, for a game before Northwestern, but he won't blame himself. Like he is the eye in Indiana right now. It's been Mike Woodson's program, and if you're not on board, then get out of the program because that's what he did with Dane Fife and anyone else who's magically gone. There's Jordan, who was it? Adam Howard. Left this year, and we can talk about that all day. But man, just take accountability. And Myles Rice, don't be so stupid. If it's not your night, don't take a freaking dumb shot at the very end. There's a lot more you can blame for Mike Woodson than just this game in his past 4 years. I think you got to lay off the gas pedal a little bit and say, you know what, you're fine running a play there. You're fine letting Galloway get the ball in his hands. It just has to be Galloway. And Woodson can call a timeout. Like if he sees Rice across the timeline, freaking yell at the official, scream in his face to call a timeout, and then draw up a play. I'm fine letting it go to a certain extent, but man, don't be stupid, guys. Just like someone take accountability. And Myles Rice, please, man, just come on. You had a great game against Maryland. I get it. That's probably why the play was drawn up for you. But you got to draw up a play for Trey Galloway in that situation. It cannot be Myles Rice. This donut's good, by the way.
What flavor is the donut you got there?
Old fashioned. I meant to say this while I was doing that. If you're on listening audio only, go over to YouTube, whatever this timestamp is on the audio app. Go find it. I just went to Kroger right before we recorded this. It's a solid old fashioned donut. And while you're at it on YouTube, like and subscribe. I haven't said that all year, but now I sound like an official YouTuber. That's just kind of where I am right now. Just not distraught, but just I feel bad for the guys, man, especially the seniors.
I can't say I've heard of an old-fashioned flavored donut. Is it just like a glazed donut?
No, it's like you never heard of an old fashioned donut?
No.
It's just like I don't even know how to describe it. Like there's nothing on it. Like it's just let me look at the definition of an old fashioned. You never heard of an old fashioned donut?
The
Term
only
used for
old-fashioned donut that I know is going scoreless in a basketball game like you just talked about. But
and we went into I mean glazed donuts are very good, but your hands get so sticky sometimes. That's the
yeah,
issue.
that's fair. Yeah, we'll talk about the donut a little bit more, but this time in the figurative or symbolic way of Myles Rice. So he shot four field goal attempts. He was 0 for 4, 0 of 1 from three. I believe his first field goal attempt was from the same, well, at least in the second half, I think. It was from the same spot as the final play of the game, and it went off the side of the
Oh
backboard.
my God, yeah. Oh my God.
That one was pretty bad.
Forgot
Um,
about that.
There was one, the missed three, I don't remember. There was a deep two that was off the dribble that was like it clanged off the heel. There was really nothing that was close from Myles Rice. He was a minus 15 in 20 minutes that led or was the least of however you want to say it, the team. I'm just gonna go. I'm not. I tend to like plus minus a little bit, especially in games like this. We'll go down like the list here and start out like Rice was a minus 15 and Renew was a minus 12. Like, and then other than that, the lowest one is Ballo at a minus 4 in 35 minutes. Everybody else was like Leah was a plus 4, Mbako minus 1, Tucker minus 2, Goody plus 4, Hatton plus 2, and Galloway minus 1. This was a 5 point game, and these plus minus numbers are inflated by two players in Renew and Rice. Like everybody is within five comfortably, um, on the deficit side even. And then Rice and Renew were a minus 15 and a minus 12. So, I mean, it's not telling of everything that happened, but it is something to take note of, especially in the final pieces. But yeah, I'm with you. There's two schools of thought on the timeout. I I was like I went through the NCAA rule book last night, because I didn't know if coaches were allowed to call timeouts in that situation by themselves, and apparently they are. So I don't know why that didn't happen. But again, you go back to the this motion from your coach when you have Myles Rice, who's one of the fastest thinking players on the floor, who just will zip from one end of the floor to the other without thinking, and you look over at your coach and all you see is that. I don't really see how you would get him to think that a timeout would want to be called there. So either you call it yourself or make it more clear. Um, and it was like it's the same thing. Like it was the same as the Maryland game. It's confusion. It was not drawn up like you should have had this discussed previously. When players and coaches are not on the same page, we've seen it in back-to-back games with under 30 seconds to go, under 10 seconds to go. We've seen it back-to-back games where the confusion is what loses Indiana this game. The communication, confusion, lack of knowledge of what is going on in the situation, and just like I don't know. Did Galloway inbound the ball after the Kaufman-Wren make? Do you
I
know?
think so. I want to say
That
yes.
that would be another problem. Like get the ball in Galloway's hands before. So if you don't want to call timeout, you still have the ball in the hands of your guy that you want the ball in the hands of. Like Galloway was red hot in the second half. He was getting whatever he wanted in the pick and roll. He was getting to the rim. He shot 7 for 10 on the game. I think like all but like he made 7 shots, 1 3, 2 3-point attempts. So I think 6 of his 7 makes were layups. Like that's all you needed. And you just find a way to get the ball in his hands. Like I can't believe I'm saying this, but I do want like I wanted the ball in the hands of Trey Galloway with the game on the line. Um, Martians have the death beam pointed at Earth. Give me Galloway. Um, just I'm just lost again on what the thought process was because you just add everything together and you got like I don't know. There was so much to take in, and it all ended in just complete heartbreak.
Yeah, it's again. I mean, this wasn't even 30 seconds. This was like I'm fine with that defensive possession. Kaufman ran that shot goes down with 11 seconds left. 39 minutes and 49 seconds of really good basketball, and then he let it all go away. And I'm worried. I'm worried. These results are so encouraging. But then yet again, you have to win some of these games. Like the almost, as you mentioned at the top, this isn't going to work. Like Indiana needs wins. You're on the wrong side of the bubble if the season were to end right now. You need wins, and you can play desperate. And Indiana kind of had played desperate as of late, and the coaching staff needs to answer a heck of a lot of questions because it doesn't get any easier. And but this does prove that. Indiana, the roster is a top 25 roster, at least in college basketball, and it's just the coaching scheme that sucks. And Malik Reneau is a huge issue here. Plus minus, you mentioned sometimes you like it or not. He's minus 12 in 8 minutes. That's minus one and a half a minute. I mean, that's horrendous. So it's just the coaching, man. That's what is, I think preventing this team from going far and some dumb plays from IU guards, which has kind of always been the case as of late. And Xavier Johnson was prone to this as well. And Myles Rice just hasn't been, head and shoulders above Xavier Johnson, which is what we all expected. Um, so yeah.
I think I remember like it was one of the clips that we posted. I think it was the Northwestern game where Renew was like a -8 in 2 minutes or something like that. I don't know what the Maryland game was. Let me see if I can find that. But his plus minus numbers, again, they're not telling of everything that goes on, but they have not been great in the past few. And if anything, that tells you if they're making winning plays or not. And um, oh man, I thought ESPN would have plus minus on their stat boards. They do not. Um, it tells you if you have winning plays. Like Anthony Leal only scored 6 points, but he grabbed 4 rebounds, dished out 4 assists, and picked up his steal. He was a +4. Luke Goody, 13 points, 4 of 9, offensive rebound, an assist, didn't foul too much, didn't turn the ball over. He was a +4. I'm even like Langdon Hatton in 2 minutes or 3 minutes. He actually made a pretty good impact on the game. He picked up 3 rebounds in 3 minutes, picked up an assist as well, did have a turnover. He was a +2. So like it's winning plays. Like Galloway, as well as he played, he 15 points, 7 of 10, 5 assists, the 6 turnovers, and he was just a -1. So it kind of offsets a little bit. So you can tell like the winning plays and the plus minus in my mind are a little bit correlated. And The two guys that struggled with making winning plays in Renew and Rice were minus 15 and minus 12 and minus 15, respectively. So that's where I stand. Were they the only problems with this game? No, but were they big problems? Yes. 20 turnovers were not committed by two people. I mean, Galloway had six, Leo four, two guys had three, Renew and Ballo. Rice had two, and Mbako and Hatton each had one. Like it was a team effort on both the positive side and on the negative side. And that's how you have to think about it. Um, and again, there were a lot of things that were encouraging about this game. The effort, the fight, the grit, the shooting numbers, the ability to play well in a difficult atmosphere. But again, it's just the same problem. We've said this all year long. It's the same problems with Indiana basketball that hurts them game after game. It's turnovers, missed free throws. This time, poor shooting wasn't a problem. And then leadership and communication. It just feels like every game that they lose, it's because of that.
Yeah, Renew against Maryland, -3 in 24 minutes. But if his conditioning is not 100%, why are we playing him? Like even so, like we know he's defensive liability, but if he's not 100%, why the hell are we forcing him to be on the floor? So again, coaching is always what it comes down to, and there's other times when coaching has been more of an impact late in games. The Maryland game is maybe the worst coach game late down the stretch for IU in years, probably, but there's still stuff to point to in a game like this.
Let's put this all into context. Looking at the net, where Indiana now stands at, first time I'm seeing this now, 65. So they actually moved up two spots in the net because, again, it was a close loss. It was a loss, but it was a close loss. They didn't get blown out by 20. You pull out the Ken Palm real quick. Um, but again, we've said this. Ken Palm 57. You're on the wrong side of the bubble, and you can't afford close losses. Now you've got opportunities to pick up good wins that can help you out. Not even including the Big Ten tournament. Um, at the Kohl Center, at the Breslin Center, versus Michigan at home, versus Purdue at home. You'll go at Oregon, who will probably still be, well, hopefully, still be ranked at the time. Then Ohio State, all these great opportunities. But if it's the same thing happening where you're playing well, you're playing 39, like we saw 39 and a half, we saw 39 and three quarters. Can we get a full 40 out of this Indiana basketball team? And I don't know. That's my answer. I don't know if we can. But it's going to need to happen because you got to win out of the next five of Wisconsin, Michigan, Michigan State, UCLA, and Purdue. You got to win at least two of them, I think, if you want a good shot.
And if Indiana plays like this, like you're gonna get at least two wins. And something changed. I don't know. After maybe it was probably the Illinois game. Like, all right, that was a disgraceful performance. There was no effort. You got run off the floor by an Illinois team, which is kind of been up and down as of late anyway. But like something has changed for the better. Like Northwestern was a relatively speaking a good performance. But and these last two games certainly have, and Ohio State as well. Obviously, you can't forget about that big overtime win. But I mean, now you've lost three straight. You're staring into the barrel here of a stretch where you could very easily lose the next five. It's just like who is going to step up in these big situations and make the big play? And Galloway almost did, but Rice basically took him out of it with a dumb play, and that's kind of where it is. So I'm encouraged, but there's no moral victories here. There really aren't. And while there have been more watchable, it's just you have to win one of these games where your opponent's essentially where you come back from a second half deficit and you're right there, but there's just no moral victories in the sport, I don't think.
I think I'm on the other side of that. I think you can take away some positives because I think it's gonna. I mean, you could see that Maryland game. I mean, granted, you're at Mackey Arena, but I think the Maryland game played a little bit of a part in like lighting a fire under these guys. Like you could tell in the first opening segment, it like there was a new energy. There was some fight, some grit. Yes, it was at Mackey Arena. Yes, it was against Purdue. But I mean, these guys want to win. They've lost 5 of 6 after winning 5 in a row. The only law or the only win of that is in overtime where they nearly lost on a buzzer beater, but it's still a win no matter what. Um, and then you've got a tough stretch. Like this is the make or break part of the season. And you're come like the two losses before the Ohio State win were both by 25 points, 85-60 and 94-69. Then you win at Ohio State, and the next ones have all been within 10. Like Northwestern was 79-70, then it got a little bit better, 79-78, although it was a bad loss. It was just 1 point against Maryland. Like if you're just looking at the scoreboard and not looking at how that game actually played out, it's a little bit more encouraging. And then you go at number 10 Purdue and you only lose by 5. Now, did you lose all 3 of those games? Yes, it's going to hurt you. And it's not great at all. Like you want to win at least like you could have won all 3 of those games, honestly. Um, but at least they're not 25 or 15 plus point losses like every other Big Ten. Well, every other loss in the season was. Louisville was 27, Gonzaga was 16, Nebraska was 17, and then those two 25-point losses. Um, and then you got the all within 10. So they're playing better, but the late game execution, man, it it's a problem. Like it's preventable mistakes. Everything that they're doing mistake wise is preventable with the turnovers, the free throw shooting, and the late game execution. And that's what makes this the most frustrating. It's not because like they're the getting like I don't know, it's not long-term issues that go throughout the whole game like shooting wise or anything like that. It's these short-term but repeated mistakes that are easily preventable. And that's what's most frustrating to me.
That's why I use encouraging as the word here because you still don't have a loss to a really bad team. Like there's not, Maryland and Illinois are both top 20 teams in the country, no doubt. Um, but it's just the margin of victory and that's or the margin of defeat. And even the games that IU has won, it's just like they're not that convincing, and that's the issue here. Like you're not getting the dominant, win, even if you don't play your best. You're not pulling away in games you should, and you're keeping yourself in these games. Like you're right, that second half when Purdue, I think, went on a 10-0 run or something, and they were up by 7 with 12 minutes left. It's like, oh boy, they're going to pull away here. This is going to get ugly. This is going to be a 15-point loss. But Indiana didn't do that, and they exploited the matchup, and that's what you have to do. And the energy was there, and clearly the leaders are vocally, helping this team, and it's going as far as it can. But we got to lift the lid off the issues that have plagued this team from winning these close games because, these last 2 games, it's like, holy crap, if you're not going to get blown out, and I don't trust IU to blow out many teams this year. I don't even know how many teams they have blown out that are like, not even Power 5, Power 4 teams or just like decent teams in their conferences, even if it's a, mid-major conference. Like, you don't have that many wins over 15 plus points this year. And if you're not going to get blown out and and lose by a big number, you got to make plays down the stretch, and that's where I just don't have confidence in this team to do that.
The thing about Indiana in recent years has been consistency or lack thereof. Like actually it's a mix of both. Like they're consistent in their problems, but they're inconsistent on when they happen, if that makes sense. Like you'll see one game where it feels like they're playing really badly and somehow they win the game. You'll see one game where it feels like they're playing great and they lose the game. Like there's no formula for this team that is like, if we do this, we're gonna win. And I feel like there's that comes down to identity. Like this team does not still really have an identity because one game, one guy's going to have an awesome day, and another guy or a group of guys are not going to have a great day. The next game, it could be the complete opposite. Like, yet does that make you a little bit of a tougher guard or a tougher scout? It does, But if you don't know how to scout yourself and you don't know how to play with the guys you have, and it's different every game, it just makes it tough to bring in consistent wins and consistent play on the court. Like, I don't know, it's a weird phenomenon to think about, but that's the best way I could describe it.
Yeah, and it's just the ability to string performances together and eventually string wins together. It's something IU hasn't been able to do really in Big Ten play. Other than that one like 5 game winning streak they had a few years ago with Trace and Jalen, but there's no consistency with this team, which sucks.
All right, Austin, final thoughts on Indiana's 81-76 loss at Mackey Arena.
It's the best performance from IU all year in a game where I think it feels like among the fans and maybe the media, like this was the game that maybe IU had the lowest chance of winning, like against a top 10 team in the country, a team that sure hasn't, has still taken maybe a half a step back from losing Zach Edey. I can't believe we never even mentioned that name during the preview. And it's like Purdue still feels like a well-oiled machine because of their guards who are now juniors with Lawyer and Smith, and Kaufman Wren was a great pickup. And it's just, it's such a great performance. But at what point are we going to draw the line and be like, all right, like you just don't get rewarded for this? How much morale-wise does that derail the team? And I'll go back to that Kansas game that you mentioned. Galloway has that unbelievable game. You just can't make the plays down the stretch late. Maybe officiating didn't help you in that game against a tough post player like Dickinson still is, ironically. He's still in college basketball. But at some point, you got to get over the hump, is what he says, and it starts with him.
I don't know how tall this hump is now, but it sure feels like it takes a lot to get over it because they've been saying that for years and years and years, and the hump has still not been crossed. So Indiana will try to get over the hump in the next few, starting with at number 17, Wisconsin on Tuesday, February 4th, 9 p.m. on Peacock. And we'll see how travel and morale and Wisconsin students and everything that factors into playing at the Kohl Center, where Indiana has not won in 27 years, will play out. Until then, Indiana has fallen to, let's see, 14-8. They sit at 10th in the Big Ten with still a tough schedule ahead. Some promising signs from Purdue, some concerning signs as well. Indiana will sit at 65 as it stands right now in the net and 57 in the Ken Palm, still on the wrong side of the bubble, in need of some quad one wins. So that'll wrap it up for us here at the House of Hoosier. For Austin, I'm Ian. We'll keep you posted throughout the rest of the season, and we'll see what Indiana can do and see if they can get over the